I like to reflect on my experience going out to view the lunar eclipse tonight. Obviously, I didn't get to experience interacting with a lot of people because I'm still recovering from COVID-19. Gotta be considerate of that. But the first thing that really ticked me off is as I was today. It's May 15th, 16th now, I guess. And we got really warm weather, except that it was really windy. And I got there about a half hour before the eclipse was to begin. I was sitting in my car, windows up, obviously, because of how windy it was. And the guy next to me idles his car for like an hour straight. And I'm thinking, gosh, how can you afford that nowadays? And I talked about in other videos how idling cars are a big soreness for me because I love to record YouTube videos out in nature. I mean, today it wasn't a sore in that regard. It was a sore because of how painful it is for me to put gas in my car so I can go to work. I work at a tutoring center, and in the past, I used to not hesitate about doing a short shift, right? Sometimes my boss calls me and needs me for like an hour and a half. In the past, yeah, it probably killed an entire afternoon, but you know what? The students are very beautiful to work with. That's the past. Today, it's become very painful to do those shifts just because of the gas price. Actually, maybe not so much because of the gas price, but because of the emotion surrounding putting gas in my car, right? When I fill up my car, it might cost $55, $60. But in the past, it might have cost $35, $40. Not end of the world difference, but it just hurts. Let's put it that way. It just hurts. Actually, the other day when I did the calculation, I'm paying less silver to fill up my car than I did in the past. So maybe I should translate the price into how many ounces of silver. I'll probably feel better that way if I think of it that way. Although I'm making a lot fewer ounces of silver at my job compared to even just 5 years ago, right? Anyway, so he idles the car. And it just tainted the entire outing for me. Not because it was noisy on the video, but I was thinking, God, I really could use that gas to go to my tutoring if it weren't being wasted by somebody. Now, I overheard, and I was sitting a good distance away from everybody, obviously, but I overheard, I think there were two families who were there, and they were talking about how this wasn't the family who was idling their car. They were talking about how wow, food prices are going up. And I'm thinking, I look at them and I think, gee, you could use a little bit less food. And that's what I'm thinking, at least. And that's true of a lot of Americans who are struggling with so-called hunger. What we really struggle with is the lack of adaptability to trying new foods, right? A lot of people think it's an emergency if they go to the grocery store and their favorite food is sold out and they have to settle with something else. Or to a lot of people, that's a hunger emergency here in the United States, right? A first world kind of problem, right? And I look at the, gee, you could use being hungry. You could fast a couple times a week. But they're talking about how they're struggling to put food on. I look at their kids. Gee, your kids could miss a few meals. I really was thinking that. Anyway, we here in the United States, we've forgotten to be grateful for the gasoline we get to put in our car, the food we get to use to kill ourselves, right? More people are probably dying, stuffing their face. That's probably a pandemic right there, right? See, for what we did for COVID-19, if we did it for food addiction, can you imagine the world we would live in, right? Restaurants would be required to have a curfew and close at 7 p.m. You would, if you're seen eating at after a certain time out in public, maybe you could get a ticket for it. You need to, definitely food advertising. We would have to have some kind of ban on it. Can you imagine if we treated food addiction like it was a pandemic? But more importantly, I think that the real pandemic is that we've lost our gratefulness for all the food that we get to kill ourselves with.